savings are already losing. The 40% devaluation of your money is not coming. It's locked in. By the end of 2026, your purchasing power will be silently plundered. Why is this mathematical inevitability? And what is the one terrifying, politically viable path your government must take? Stay tuned to learn the undeniable truth from the Federal Reserve's own data. The 40% devaluation is already locked in. It's not coming, it's here. I'm Jordan Blake, and you need to grasp this immediately. The 40% purchasing power loss of your savings by the end of 2026 is not a prediction. It is a mathematical inevitability. It is already locked in, the chilling outcome of a system with only one politically viable path left: relentless currency creation. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is documented, undeniable fact from the Federal Reserve's own reports and Treasury data. They created this mess, and we, the everyday Americans, will pay the price. Look at the brutal math. Our national debt to GDP ratio in 2023 screamed to 123%. That's a level we last saw right after World War II. But don't let anyone tell you this is the same scenario. Back then, America was an industrial titan, our factories churning, our economy poised for unprecedented growth, largely untouched by global conflict. Today, we're battling in a hyper-competitive global landscape, drowning under the weight of unprecedented peacetime debt. The context is everything, and the context is grim. The numbers tell a stark, terrifying story. According to Treasury data, federal interest payments alone hit a staggering $1.1 trillion annually in 2024. For the first time since World War II, we are spending more just to service our debt than we are on our entire military. Think about that for a moment. We're prioritizing interest payments to bondholders over national defense. Our total debt spirals at $35.9 trillion, and with average interest rates creeping up to 3.1%, the trajectory is clear, undeniable, and catastrophic. By 2026, those interest payments will eclipse $1.3 trillion annually. This isn't sustainable. This isn't theoretical. This is a mathematical dead end. Our government, these politicians, they face three impossible choices. Only three. First, default. They could simply tell the world, we're not paying. This would be credibility suicide. Look at Argentina. They've defaulted 9 times since 1827, and their currency is effectively worthless internationally. No government, especially not ours, would willingly choose this path. It dismantles the entire global financial order they helped create. Second, austerity. They could slash spending, hike taxes dramatically, and balance the budget. This is political suicide. Remember Greece from 2010 to 2015? Their GDP contracted a brutal 25%. The government fell, and the people rioted. No politician in a democracy will willingly embrace that kind of public fury. They crave power, not public scorn. That leaves the third option, the only politically viable path: the hidden tax, monetary expansion. They will print money. They always do. This is a subtle, insidious theft, a quiet confiscation of your wealth through debasement of the currency itself. Now, some skeptics will argue, but Jordan, the US dollar is the global reserve currency. It's too strong to fail. And yes, you're right, the USD is still the global reserve currency. Other nations do still demand it, not necessarily because our fiscal house is in order, but because of our political stability, our deep capital markets, and, frankly, the terrifying lack of any viable alternative. They're stuck with us, for now. But here's what you need to understand. The dollar's relative strength against other struggling currencies doesn't stop it from losing purchasing power for you within your own economy. The Bureau of Labor Statistics doesn't lie. What cost $1 in 1971 now costs $8.37. That's not a temporary blip. That's 88% of your dollar's purchasing power gone. It's an internal erosion, like rust eating away at the foundation of your home, even if the house next door is burning down. Let me introduce you to the real enemy here, the Federal Reserve. Their balance sheet is the smoking gun, the irrefutable evidence of where we're headed. From $4.2 trillion in February 2020, it ballooned to a peak of $8.9 trillion by April 2022. That's an astonishing $4.7 trillion created in just over 2 years, a sum larger than the entire economy of Japan. And even after their so-called quantitative tightening, the balance sheet still stands at a monstrous $7.1 trillion as of November 2024. The Fed holds $4.8 trillion in Treasury securities and $2.3 trillion in mortgage-backed securities, representing a staggering 25% of all outstanding Treasury debt. The Fed is now the single largest holder of our government's debt. This isn't market discipline. This is monetization. This is the monetary expansion I'm warning you about. You might think that this is all just academic, a theoretical discussion for economists, but it impacts your life directly. It impacts every dollar you earn, every dollar you save, every dollar you hope to pass on to your children. The Cantillon effect explains it perfectly, a concept named after an 18th century economist who understood that those closest to the printing press benefit first and most. The Federal Reserve creates these new reserve balances electronically, literally typing numbers into bank accounts. They use these reserves to purchase government bonds from a select group of 24 primary dealers, institutions like J.P. Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, and Bank of America. These institutions receive the newly created currency first. They buy assets before prices rise throughout the broader economy. This is why you see asset prices explode while your wages stagnate. By the time that newly created money trickles down to your grocery store, your gas station, and your rent payment, inflation has already stripped away its value. You are always playing catch-up. This isn't a new phenomenon. History provides a chilling blueprint. When our debt to GDP exceeds 120% and interest payments exceed 15% of tax revenue, which, by the way, is exactly where we are right now at 123% debt and 17% of revenue going to interest, governments face those three options, and they always choose the same one. The 1940s give us the exact precedent. Federal debt hit 119% of GDP in 1946. The Fed, in collusion with the Treasury, kept Treasury yields capped at 2.5% through 1951 in a policy known as financial repression. Inflation ran at an average of 5.7% annually from 1946 to 1951. Real interest rates were deeply negative. The government effectively inflated away the debt burden, and bondholders, unsuspecting savers, lost 30% of their purchasing power across just 5 years. The Federal Reserve Treasury Accord of March 4, 1951, officially ended the policy, but the damage was already done. The debt had been devalued through inflation. We are watching this exact pattern unfold again right now in real time. Some will point to the immense federal spending on things like infrastructure or green initiatives and say, but this debt is productive. It's an investment, like in World War II. This is a false hope, a dangerous distinction they want you to believe. Debt incurred during World War II fueled a massive industrial build-out, creating a post-war economic boom. It was productive debt that enabled a massive expansion of our economic capacity. Today's debt, however, is largely a different animal. It's funding social spending, ever-increasing entitlement programs, and, most alarmingly, the ever-growing interest payments on past debt. It's not building factories, it's paying the piper for past consumption. This debt doesn't generate future economic growth to offset its burden. It compounds the problem. Federal debt is projected to hit $40 trillion by 2026. The M2 money supply, the broad measure of money in circulation, sits at $21.1 trillion as of November 2024, a massive jump from $15.5 trillion in February 2020. We've already experienced 22% cumulative inflation from January 2021 to November 2024. This isn't theory. This is what you feel at the gas pump and the grocery store. Real yields on the 10-year Treasury are currently 4.4%, with CPI at 3.1%, meaning a mere 1.3% real yield. Historically, that's incredibly low. If this pattern continues, and the fiscal mathematics screams that it must, an additional 20 to 25% purchasing power lost by the end of 2026 becomes the baseline scenario. Combine that with the 22% already lost since 2021, and the cumulative effect reaches that horrifying 40% figure. This is not a guess, this is arithmetic. So who wins and who loses in this scenario? The government wins, paying back its colossal debt with cheaper dollars. Borrowers with fixed-rate debt can win, as the real value of their obligations shrinks. But the losers? You. Savers, wage earners, anyone who holds cash, bonds, or fixed income investments. A $10,000 savings account in 1971, even earning 5% interest, had the purchasing power of only $5,400 by 1981. That's how quickly it happens. Real wages peaked in 1973 and didn't recover that level until 1995. That's 22 years of going backward despite working just as hard. This is the inflation heist. You want to know how to fight back? You need strategies. First, asset diversification. This isn't about hoarding cash, it's about holding assets that thrive when fiat currencies fail. Think gold, the ultimate scarce asset. Consider income-generating real estate, which holds intrinsic value and provides inflation-adjusted rents. Look at stocks of companies with genuine pricing power, those able to pass on rising costs to consumers without losing market share. These are your inflation hedges, your shield against the storm. Second, smart debt utilization. If you have low, fixed-rate debt, especially a home mortgage, you can use inflation to your advantage. Your future inflated dollars will pay off that fixed debt. But this requires you to invest the difference wisely into cash-flowing assets, not to consume more. And third, most critically, human capital enhancement. In an inflationary world, your ability to earn, to increase your wages, to adapt and acquire new skills is paramount. Invest in yourself. Develop flexible income streams. Make yourself indispensable so you can demand higher compensation as prices inevitably rise. Your skill set is your greatest asset. Now, I know some of you are thinking, surely there are other ways out of this debt trap. Tax reform? Spending cuts? Yes, theoretically, we could implement large-scale structural tax reform. We could make clearly defined draconian spending cuts to entitlements and defense. We could even pray for a miraculous breakthrough in productivity growth that somehow outpaces our debt. But let's be brutally honest. In today's hyper-polarized political climate, with politicians beholden to special interests and focused solely on the next election cycle, these options are dead on arrival. They lack the political courage. The path of least resistance, the path of stealth wealth transfer, is always currency creation. To understand why this is inevitable, you have to go back to the original sin, the day our money was untethered from reality. In 1965, French officials knew a fundamental secret about money that forced them to empty our vaults, extracting $3.5 billion between 1965 and 1968. That secret is the key to your financial survival, and I will reveal how you can use it at the end of this report. The original sin: how the gold link was severed. I'm Jordan Blake. I've spent over 10 years researching the mechanics of financial crises and market bubbles, tracing their origins, connecting the dots. And what I'm seeing in our current monetary system is a pattern I haven't seen since the chaotic decades that followed the greatest betrayal of trust in American financial history. That betrayal, the original sin, started exactly 53 years ago. August 15, 1971. At 9 p.m. Eastern Time, President Richard Nixon appeared on television. He didn't just change the nature of money forever, He revealed the ultimate enemy, a government that breaks its own rules, prioritizing political expediency over the very integrity of your currency. In 15 minutes, he severed the last thread connecting the US dollar to physical gold. He removed the final constraint on how much currency could be created. This wasn't a strategic pivot, as history textbooks often euphemistically claim. This was a desperate admission of bankruptcy. To understand the magnitude of this moment, we have to go back 6 years earlier. You need to picture this: July 1965, inside the vault of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. A French naval destroyer sits in New York Harbor. French officials, under President Charles de Gaulle's explicit orders, are physically loading $150 million worth of gold bars, about 60 tons of actual metal, onto that ship. They were simply exercising their legal right, a right guaranteed by an agreement we signed in 1944. They were converting our paper dollars back to gold. This wasn't an isolated incident. France alone extracted a staggering $3.5 billion in gold between 1965 and 1968. Germany followed suit, taking $2 billion. The vault that once held 20,000 metric tons of gold in 1950 was hemorrhaging metal. By August 1971, only 8,100 tons remained. Here's what should grab your attention, what should spark a cold dread. $70 billion in foreign dollar claims existed for gold that simply wasn't there anymore. Our government had made a solemn promise. Every $35 could be exchanged for 1 ounce of gold, guaranteed. Foreign central banks believed that promise because we'd written it into the Bretton Woods Agreement, the very foundation that rebuilt the global economy after World War II. But then something changed. We, the American government, started creating more dollars than we had gold to back them. It was financial recklessness, plain and simple. The cracks in this facade became dramatically visible in March 1968 when the London gold pool collapsed. 7 central banks, including our own Federal Reserve, had been desperately working together since 1961 to suppress gold prices, trying to hold that $35 per ounce peg. They sold 1,400 tons of gold into the market, a futile effort. On March 14, 1968, the London gold market actually closed for 2 weeks because the pressure became unsustainable. The pool dissolved, and private gold prices separated from official rates. The total losses? An estimated $3.2 billion in gold reserves. Simply gone, vanished. This was the system's first major failure, not a hiccup, but a heart attack. Fast forward to May 1971, just 3 months before Nixon's infamous announcement. In the first week of May, $1 billion flooded into West Germany as currency speculators, sensing the weakness, bet against our dollar. The Bundesbank bought dollars frantically to maintain fixed exchange rates, adding $1 billion to their reserves in 1 week, then another $1 billion the following week. On May 5th, Germany, seeing the writing on the wall, stopped defending the dollar peg and let the Deutschmark float. This wasn't just a warning shot, it was a cannon blast across our bow, signaling that we were rapidly running out of time, running out of gold, running out of credibility. What caused this crisis? Federal Reserve records are brutally clear. President Lyndon Johnson spent $168 billion on the Vietnam War and Great Society programs between 1964 and 1968. He did this without raising taxes proportionally. These newly printed dollars flooded global markets, a torrent of unbacked promises. Foreign central banks watched our inflation rise from 1.6% in 1965 to 5.5% in 1969. They made a rational calculation, one that you or I would make today. Convert that paper into metal before the paper loses any more value. They were smart. They understood the game. On August 13, 1971, Nixon convened his economic advisors at Camp David for an emergency weekend meeting. Federal Reserve Chairman Arthur Burns, for all his faults, initially opposed closing the gold window. But Treasury Secretary John Connally, the political operative, argued fiercely for it. The data laid bare before them was undeniable, merciless. At current rates, the United States would run out of gold within 18 months. The system was facing total collapse. So, on that Sunday evening, Nixon made the announcement. He called it a temporary suspension of dollar convertibility to gold. 53 years later, that temporary suspension remains permanent. Here's what this moment actually revealed about our money, about our government. The Bretton Woods system required discipline. We could only create as many dollars as could be backed by gold at $35 per ounce. It was a physical constraint, like a speed limit, enforced by the laws of physics, not a traffic cop who could be bought off. When our government spent beyond what gold reserves could support, foreign central banks weren't attacking the system. They were simply asking us to honor our own promise. The system didn't collapse from external pressure. It collapsed because we'd already broken the internal constraints. The 1971 decision didn't create a new system. It simply acknowledged that the old constraints were already shattered beyond repair. The Cantillon machine. How the heist is printed. Wealth transfer. That's what quantitative easing really is, stripped of all the academic jargon and economic euphemisms. It's not stimulus. It's a precisely engineered mechanism designed to transfer your purchasing power to those closest to the money printer. This is the Cantillon machine. You need to understand how this machine works. The Federal Reserve creates new reserve balances electronically. No printing presses are required. They literally type numbers into bank accounts. They use these newly conjured reserves to purchase assets like government bonds and mortgage-backed securities. But here's the critical part. They don't buy from you or me. They buy from a select group of 24 institutions known as primary dealers. Think of the biggest names: JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America. These aren't just banks. They are the gatekeepers. They are the first recipients of this fresh, newly created currency. Imagine a watering can. Those closest to the spigot get the fresh water first. Their plants grow immediately. Those further down the garden, by the time the water trickles to them, it's already less, or the sun has baked the ground dry. That's the Cantillon effect for you and your savings. This is the us versus them of modern monetary policy, and you, the wage earner, the saver, you're often on the losing side. Let me show you the data. Look at Quantitative Easing 3 from 2012 to 2014. The Fed announced open-ended purchases, eventually creating $1.6 trillion in new money. They told us this was to stimulate the economy. But what actually happened? During that period, the S&P 500 stock index rose a staggering 45%. 45%! Now compare that to your reality. Median household income, the actual money in the pockets of working Americans, rose by a paltry 2.4% over the same time frame. You see it, don't you? Assets appreciated violently, enriching those who already held capital and had first access to inflated markets, while the vast majority of citizens watched their wages crawl along. It wasn't stimulus for everyone, it was a turbocharger for the already wealthy, leaving the rest of us behind struggling to keep pace. But even that pales in comparison to the COVID-19 response. On March 23, 2020, the Fed announced unlimited quantitative easing. Unlimited. Look at this balance sheet expansion. In February 2020, the Federal Reserve's balance sheet stood at $4.2 trillion. Just 9 months later, by December 2020, it had ballooned to an astronomical $7.4 trillion. That is $3.2 trillion in new money created out of thin air, injected into the financial system in less than a year. They justified it as an emergency, as necessary to prevent a meltdown. I know what you're thinking. It was a crisis. They had to do something. And yes, they did something. They printed. They printed at a pace unprecedented in peacetime history. The critics, the talking heads, they tried to dismiss the inevitable consequences. They told us this was transitory inflation, a temporary blip caused by supply chain issues. That sounds like good news, doesn't it? But it was a lie. The math, the actual mechanics, they told a different story. That massive injection of $3.2 trillion wasn't some abstract financial maneuver. It was a direct injection of monetary fuel that inevitably led to the 7% CPI spike we witnessed in 2021. The heist was printed in 2020. You felt it at the pump, at the grocery store, and in your rent bills in 2021 and beyond. There's a lag, a cruel delay between when the new money enriches the few and when its inflationary effects finally reach your wallet. Now I hear the counter-argument. But Jordan, the US dollar is still the global reserve currency. Even if we print, other nations still demand it. And they are not entirely wrong. The US dollar does maintain a position of relative strength due to our political stability, the depth of our capital markets, and, let's be honest, the lack of a truly viable alternative global currency right now. The world still needs dollars for trade, for debt, for stability in a turbulent globe. But here is where that argument utterly collapses for the average American. The dollar's global strength does not protect its domestic purchasing power. Those French officials loading $150 million in gold onto a destroyer in 1965 understood this perfectly. They saw our government creating more dollars than it could back, and they converted their paper into metal. They didn't care about the dollar's theoretical global standing, they cared about its real value, its claim on actual wealth. When the government can create unlimited claims, each existing claim becomes worth less. You see, while the world might still use our dollar for trade, you are still paying more for groceries, more for gas, and more for rent right here at home. The relative strength of the dollar internationally is cold comfort when your savings are being silently plundered by inflation domestically. It's a distinction the elites exploit while Main Street bears the cost. We must also differentiate between debt that fuels productive growth and debt that simply greases the wheels of an already over-leveraged system. During World War II, our nation took on massive debt, but that debt built factories, it innovated technology, it mobilized an entire industrial base that laid the foundation for decades of unprecedented post-war growth. That was debt for productive capacity. Today, we carry $35.9 trillion in national debt. Is it being used to build the next industrial revolution? Or is it largely directed towards social spending, servicing ever-growing interest payments, and propping up existing structures? When the government inflates away debt from productive investment, the future can absorb it. When it inflates away debt from consumption and interest, it's just stealing from tomorrow's wealth without creating any new value. It's a crucial difference and one that highlights the danger of our current trajectory. So, let's be clear. Quantitative easing is not some benign economic tool. It is a sophisticated, systemic mechanism for wealth transfer, orchestrated by the Federal Reserve and executed through its primary dealers. It's a silent tax, levied without legislative approval, disproportionately impacting savers, fixed income earners, and anyone who plays by the traditional rules. This isn't a bug in the system, it's the central feature of the Cantillon machine. It's the engine of the new inflation heist. Now, the critical question: how do you protect yourself against this ongoing heist? You cannot stop the machine, but you can position yourself to minimize the damage. First, asset diversification. You need assets that are proven hedges against inflation. Think tangible, scarce assets, physical gold, and other precious metals, income-generating real estate that can adjust rents with inflation, and stocks of companies with true pricing power, those businesses that can pass rising costs on to their customers without losing market share. Second, smart debt utilization. If you have access to low fixed-rate debt, like a long-term home mortgage, use it strategically to acquire cash-flowing assets. Inflation erodes the real value of that debt over time, making it cheaper to pay back with debased dollars. This is what our government does, and it's a strategy you can adapt. Third, and perhaps most vital, human capital enhancement. In an environment where currency is constantly debased, your ability to generate flexible income and increase your wages is paramount. Invest in skills, pursue opportunities that offer inflation-adjusted compensation, and become indispensable in your field. Your ability to earn more, faster, is your ultimate defense against a currency that is consistently losing value. Don't just hoard cash. Invest in yourself, in assets that preserve value, and in income streams that can grow with inflation. Now, could we escape this debt trap without resorting to the Cantillon machine? Theoretically, yes. We could implement radical tax reform to drastically increase government revenue, or enact brutal, politically unthinkable spending cuts across the board. We could even hope for a breakthrough productivity growth miracle where our economy expands at a pace that dwarfs our debt accumulation. But let's be brutally honest, these are political non-starters. The political will simply isn't there for the kind of austerity or tax increases required to solve a $35.9 trillion debt problem without printing. History tells us precisely which path governments choose when faced with this impossible trinity. It is always, always the path of least political resistance, monetary expansion. This system has been battle-tested. Now, look at the national balance sheet. The numbers prove they have no choice but to run this playbook again, on a scale that will make 2020 look small. The mathematical trap, America's point of no return. That's the only word left to describe America's financial future. You need to understand, we are already past the event horizon. The escape velocity required to avoid devaluing our currency is no longer mathematically possible. We are in a mathematical trap, an inflationary force field from which there is no political exit except one, the hidden tax of currency debasement. Look at the numbers. They don't lie. Our national debt to GDP ratio has soared past 123% in 2023. This isn't just a big number, it's a critical threshold. The last time we saw levels like this was right after World War II. Back then, America stood alone, an industrial powerhouse with the world's only intact manufacturing base, ready to rebuild a shattered planet. Today, we're competing in a globalized economy, our industrial base eroded while carrying an unprecedented peacetime debt. The historical context is crucial. It's a completely different playing field. And the cost of this debt? It's crippling us. According to the Treasury Department's own data, federal interest payments hit an astounding $1.1 trillion annually in 2024. Let that sink in. For the first time since World War II, we are spending more just to service our debt than we spend on our entire defense budget, more than our military. We're paying warlords of debt more than we are paying to protect our nation. Our total debt is now $35.9 trillion, and with average interest rates rising to 3.1%, the trajectory is sickeningly clear. By 2026, interest payments are projected to exceed $1.3 trillion annually. This isn't sustainable. It's a fiscal cancer. You have only 3 choices when you hit this point: default, austerity, or monetary expansion. Default means economic ruin and global humiliation. Think Argentina, 9 defaults since 1827, their currency a punchline. Austerity? That's political suicide. Remember Greece, where GDP contracted 25% from 2010 to 2015, and governments fell. No politician in Washington has the courage to inflict that pain. So that leaves one option: the quiet killer, the stealth tax, monetary expansion. The Federal Reserve, the ultimate villain in this story, will be forced to print more money. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. The critics will always tell you the US dollar is the global reserve currency. Everyone still needs it, Jordan, they'll say. And it's true that the dollar still enjoys relative strength due to America's political stability and deep capital markets. Other nations still demand it, primarily because there's no immediate viable alternative. But that argument completely misses the point. The dollar's status on the global stage does not protect its purchasing power in your wallet. It does not protect your savings from being systematically plundered by your own government. This isn't about the dollar's external strength. It's about its internal, cancerous decay. We've seen this play before. The 1940s give us the exact historical precedent for this particular form of economic warfare against savers. Federal debt surged to 119% of GDP in 1946. What did the Federal Reserve do? They implemented a policy known as financial repression. They artificially capped Treasury yields at a paltry 2.5% through 1951. Meanwhile, inflation was allowed to run rampant, averaging 5.7% annually from 1946 to 1951. The real interest rates were deeply, savagely negative. The government inflated away its massive debt burden, essentially paying back its loans with cheaper dollars. The bondholders, the savers, the dutiful citizens who bought those war bonds lost a staggering 30% of their purchasing power in just 5 years. That wasn't an accident. It was the feature, not the bug. It was a deliberate destruction of wealth. Today, we are watching this exact pattern unfold again. Our debt to GDP is even higher, at 123%. An astonishing 17% of our tax revenue is now going just to interest payments. Our real yields on the 10-year Treasury are a pathetic 1.3% when you account for the official CPI. This is the government's playbook, being executed right before your eyes. Federal debt is projected to hit an eye-watering $40 trillion by 2026. The M2 money supply currently sits at $21.1 trillion, up from $15.5 trillion in February 2020. That's a tidal wave of new currency. We've already experienced 22% cumulative inflation from January 2021 to November 2024. The mathematics are cold, hard, and unforgiving. If this pattern continues, an additional 20 to 25% purchasing power loss by the end of 2026 is not speculation, it's the baseline scenario. Combine that with what we've already lost, and that cumulative effect reaches the terrifying 40% figure. Now, some might argue for structural solutions. Why don't we just cut spending or reform our taxes? Why don't we encourage massive breakthrough productivity growth? Those are the responsible, long-term answers. They would avoid this destructive inflationary path. But let's be honest, large-scale tax reform or deep spending cuts are politically untenable in Washington today. They require a level of political will that simply does not exist. The debt accumulated after World War II was, in part, good debt, investments in our future that fueled decades of unprecedented growth. The debt we are accumulating today, largely on social spending and interest payments, is not fueling the same kind of productive expansion. This isn't investment, it's consumption, and a bill that will always come due. So who wins and who loses in this mathematical inevitability? The government wins, as the real value of its debt is crushed. Borrowers with fixed-rate debt win, as their repayments become cheaper over time. And who loses? Savers, retirees, wage earners whose incomes can't keep pace, people like you. But you don't have to be a helpless victim. Understanding the game is the first step to winning it. There are counter-strategies. You must diversify your assets. Think about what historically hedges against inflation: gold, income-generating real estate, scarce assets like certain cryptocurrencies, and stocks of companies with strong pricing power that can pass on rising costs to consumers. You can also utilize debt smartly. Low fixed-rate debt, like a home mortgage, can become a powerful tool to acquire cash-flowing assets, allowing inflation to erode the real value of your debt while your assets appreciate. Most importantly, you must invest in your human capital, your skills, your ability to generate flexible income, your capacity to demand higher wages. These are paramount in an inflationary environment. Cash sitting idle is a melting ice cube. The trap is set. The heist is in motion. So, what was the secret the French knew? And how do we build our own financial lifeboat starting today? The Survivor's Playbook: Reclaiming Your Value. Claims: forget what you think you know about money, because the truth is far more unsettling. The core problem, the secret the system doesn't want you to grasp, is this: currency is not value. It is merely a claim on value. And when infinite claims can be printed out of thin air, your existing claims are systematically devalued. You need to understand this. Remember the French officials in 1965 physically loading $150 million worth of gold bars onto a destroyer in New York Harbor. They extracted $3.5 billion in gold between 1965 and 1968. Germany took $2 billion. The vault that held 20,000 metric tons in 1950 was down to 8,100 tons by 1971. They weren't being greedy, they were being rational. They understood that when our government had made promises, $35 for an ounce of gold, but then started creating far more dollars than gold to back them, the paper became a hollow promise. They took the physical asset while it was still available, because currency is just a ticket. And when too many tickets are printed for the same concert, each ticket becomes worthless. This isn't some abstract economic theory. This is the mechanism by which 40% of your savings can be stolen by 2026. But you are not helpless. You have a playbook. Action 1. Own scarce assets. Look at the Fed's balance sheet. From $4.2 trillion in February 2020 to $7.4 trillion by December, they created $3.2 trillion in just 9 months. That newly created currency flows into assets first, inflating their prices before it hits your grocery store. The elites closest to the printing press buy assets at yesterday's prices. You must do the same. This means acquiring hedges that cannot be printed. Gold is the timeless answer, a tangible asset that has preserved wealth for millennia precisely because it is finite. It stood against the dollar in 1971, and it stands against endless fiat currency today. Income-generating real estate, not speculative flips, but properties that produce cash flow. Your rent comes in, your mortgage gets paid with cheaper, inflated dollars. It's like sailing on a rising tide. And finally, stocks of companies with genuine pricing power. Businesses that can pass on rising costs to consumers without losing market share. These are your economic fortresses, immune to the Fed's digital printing press. These aren't just investments, they are your lifeboats in a sea of devaluing claims. Action 2. Use smart debt. I know what you're thinking. Debt is bad, Jordan. And for consumer debt, for credit cards, for liabilities that don't produce income, you are absolutely right. That's bad debt. But there's good debt, smart debt. This is about being the government, not the victim. When the federal government allowed its debt to rise from $398 billion in 1971 to $995 billion in 1981, inflation reduced the real value of that debt by 43%. They essentially paid back their loans with cheaper dollars. You can do the same. A long-term, fixed-rate mortgage on an income-generating or appreciating asset becomes your ally. As the currency debases, the real value of your debt shrinks. You are paying back today's large loan with tomorrow's smaller, inflated dollars. It's a legal, moral way to turn their inflation against them. This is not about being reckless. It is about leveraging the system. Action 3. Enhance your human capital. The ultimate hedge against this inflation heist isn't just external, it's internal. It's your ability to increase your income faster than inflation erodes your purchasing power. Remember, real wages peaked in 1973 and didn't recover until 1995, 22 years of going backward, despite working just as hard. Your skills are your personal printing press. In an economy where external capital is being debased, your internal capital, your knowledge, your expertise, your ability to create value becomes paramount. Learn new skills, diversify your income streams, demand higher wages, or start a side hustle. Your ability to adapt and increase your earning capacity is the most robust defense you have. It's your superpower. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, but Jordan, the US dollar is still the global reserve currency. It's the cleanest dirty shirt in the laundry pile. You are not entirely wrong. Geopolitical stability, deep capital markets, and the sheer lack of a viable alternative have sustained demand for the dollar on the international stage. But let me be crystal clear. Global reserve status does not protect your purchasing power against domestic inflation. The fact that what cost $1 in 1971 costs $8.37 today, according to Bureau of Labor Statistics data, is proof. The dollar might be strong relative to the euro or the yen, but it is demonstrably weaker against the actual goods and services you need to live. It keeps the system afloat, but it still drowns your savings. The critics will also argue that government debt isn't always a bad thing. They'll point to World War II, when our debt to GDP ratio reached 119% in 1946. But that debt was primarily used to fund a productive war effort that led to massive post-war growth, rebuilding infrastructure, and becoming a global industrial powerhouse. We invested. Today, according to Treasury data, federal interest payments hit $1.1 trillion annually in 2024. That's more than we spend on defense for the first time since World War II. We are borrowing just to service old debt. This isn't productive investment. It's a financial black hole. Politicians could implement large-scale tax reform, clearly define spending cuts, or foster breakthrough productivity growth to address this $35.9 trillion. They could, but history, the raw data, and common sense tell you these are political suicide missions. We're at 123% debt to GDP, with 17% of revenue going to interest. The path of least resistance, the path they always choose, is monetary expansion. They will print. It's the only politically viable option to keep the lights on, even if it means stealing your purchasing power. This isn't about fear. This is about fierce, data-driven empowerment. You now have the defensive strategy. In my next report, we go on offense. I'll break down the one market sector that is legally required to profit from the government's inflationary endgame.